Welcome back. This is Sunday edition here on KTN News. Today, it is the 12th day of August 2018. Exactly 1 year and 4 days after Kenyans went to the polls in the 2017 general election. We have been having a special coverage to just take stock of the state of things in the country 12 years down the line. It has been a political year. A lot of political developments have been documented. Our senior political affairs reporter, Chris Airo, did take a look at the state of the political parties 1 year after the elections. Take a look.
A few months to the 2017 general election, and political parties seemed to have found new working formula. There were promises to strengthen the party bonds as a group of parties decided to fold and form one formidable party. Others settled on forming a coalition in efforts to ascend to power. 12 months down the line, the vigor, charisma and hype witnessed then seems to have faded away, and now the main political outfits are facing internal wrangles, messy splits and sibling rivalry at another level. The latest squabbles in the majority Jubilee party being about whether Treasury CS Henry Rotich should be sent packing, with a section of Jubilee legislators locking horns with President Uhuru Kenyatta's inner circle.
We must stamp our authority as parliament, and if we have anybody who wants to save the CS Henry Rotich, that has to be on the floor of the house.
The party is worried that of late they are even usurping the role of the appointing authority and trying to dictate who can be hired or fired.
In the NASA coalition, things have not been rosy. Since losing the election in 2017, the ODM party has threatened to go it alone, and the coalition have seemed to be out of options after the Wiper ANC had Ford Kenya principles skipped the controversial oathing ceremony of NASA leader Raila Odinga on January 30th.
The base of political parties has been more for political expediency in our country, because this is something we need to acknowledge if we want to be able to resolve it. We have been thin or weak on the ideological foundation in political parties.
Parties are formed for purposes of elections so that they catapult the party leadership into the government, isn't it?
Then there are smaller parties that seem to have disappeared into political oblivion soon after the general election. A good example is the Chama cha Mashinani, whose party leader is former Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto. The party managed to win 2 parliamentary seats, but has remained largely quiet. The other is NAK Kenya, whose party leader is Martha Karua, who lost in the Kirinyaga gubernatorial race in the Battle of the Iron Ladies. PNU, which industrialization CS Peter Munya used to vie for the Meru gubernatorial seat, has also gone back to hibernation. Ekuru Okoth's Third Way Alliance and the Democratic Party have also been rather inactive.
The first year is not the right time for political parties to up their games. It is, in fact, the time to allow the winning political parties to put their agenda in place, start their programs, and move.
Parties in this country have either been strongly ethnic rooted or regionally rooted, or perhaps rooted on the basis of a strong man syndrome. So when they cross certain bridges, they then start finding difficulty down the road, because each of them had very different interests.
Other parties like Independence Party KANU have been active, but have chosen to keep their cards hidden despite making a decision to support President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. However, most politicians argue that when it comes to coalitions, affiliate parties should retreat back to their shells and concentrate on strengthening their support base if they fail to clinch to power.
If NASA didn't win, it ceases to be a coalition for all practical purposes, because coalition to do what? Each party should follow its own agenda. After that, you never know. In 2022, there'll be new coalitions coming into place.
let us not fall into the trap of being seen to be moving back, even if it may be involuntary, into a state where we now have a one-party state. We should not allow ourselves to get there.
Despite the challenges that most political parties are facing, including funding from the exchequer as well as rebellion from within, many shareholders believe Kenyans should jealously protect the democratic space the country enjoys. Chris Dairo, KTN News.
Thank you, Chris. Chris Dairo there with a look at the state of the political parties. Dismas, let me begin with you. 12 months down the line, a lot has been happening. A lot has happened, politically speaking, of course, not least that handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. How would you say this country is today, 12 months after going to the polls to elect their next set of leaders?
I would look at it from two levels, one from the political space and one from the economic space. In the political space, we seem to have achieved some sort of stability, with Raila Odinga giving President Uhuru Kenyatta the political insurance he needs to take some critical decisions. So right now, President Kenyatta can do pretty much what he wants, provided Raila Odinga is in agreement. But the big question one wants to ask all the time is that whatever President Kenyatta is doing and Raila Odinga, is it consistent with our public interest, our national interest, and the public good? Or is it a convergence of interest between those two personalities? And you know, people have said times above number that this handshake should have been anchored on the cumulative interest and aspirations of the nation. And now with what the National Assembly is doing, we are left at the mercies of those two politicians. And we are hoping that those are wise men operating as the Building Bridges initiative will actually come up with concrete proposals to address our issues. And the issues that this team must address are well known to all and sundry in Kenya. Therefore, IBC, we are not sure whether IBC has got the capacity to run a free, fair and a credible election.
Right.
And you saw what happened a few days ago when the High Court said that IBC as stands today is properly constituted. So there's a lot of fog which needs to be cleared. But when you go to the economics space, then that's where things are really beating us. The issue we are discussing here about sugar goes back to economics. Yes. The issues we are discussing about tea goes back to economics. When, for the first time, I'm very impressed with Kipchumba as a lawyer. He's called a spade and said that SGR is a rip-off. We need to start asking ourselves, is our economy at the right stage? A few days ago, there was an IMF delegation, and the minister responsible for Treasury, that the Honorable Baraza wants to send home, that's Rotich, stands accused that our economy is bleeding. And people are beginning to ask, what kind of advice is he giving President Kenyatta? You remember the last time we had the IMF dictating was when President Moi was about to leave office. But during the time of President Kibaki, we kept IMF at bay. Right now, we are hanging on IMF because we want them to give us a standby facility so that in the event our shilling starts depreciating, we've got access to that resource. The Jubilee supporters would claim that the economy is doing very good, that the economy is, that it's upbeat. But you speak to suppliers of both national and county governments, they'll tell you they've not been paid for months on end. So you're wondering, if the economy is doing very well, how come these people are not being paid? That is a question that nobody's coming out to ask. Number two, if the economy is doing very well, how come the cost of energy is going up by the day? You recall a few days ago, these people have had to review the cost of energy. That points in one direction, that the economy is not doing well. And then also there's the cost of petroleum. In the next few months, a litre is going up to 130 shillings if you're buying fuel for your car. Again, there's a taxation being introduced. One would have expected that if the economy is doing very well, you reduce the cost of taxation.
Yes.
But if you must increase the cost of taxation, provide all the services.
Right.
And you know, Kenyans have got Kenyans on large don't have issues with high taxation. But if this high taxation was delivering goods, like it happened in Norway or Sweden, would be a very happy lot. And maybe my challenge to Baraza, because he seems to have a rare energy in the National Assembly, he should now go and, because he was unable to kick out a Rotich because a third of our budget or rather because of the sugar issue, it should now start kicking out the guys who ensure that a third of our budget goes into corruption.
All right. Mheshimiwa, a lot of people seem to think that this 1 year after the election has, because of the handshake, it has kind of forced strange political bedfellows and that it's not going to last. Some people have cited infighting in NASA and even Jubilee. You want to remove a Jubilee, a CS yourself. Some people are saying that is a sign of things to come.
I would want to say that having peace in the country is not development, but rather is an enabler of development. So what is required now is, now we have the Big Four agenda.
Yes.
But what Kenyans are really looking out to see is the roadmap towards implementing the Big Four agenda. And what the government should do now, or the president should do now, is to be able to do some kind of an analysis, a review, to be able to find out what are some of the things which can be an impediment to him achieving the Big Four agenda, and also identifying those that are really an enabler, so that we can begin to see the fruits of the Big Four agenda, because we are running out of time. In terms of political undertones, I tell you for free that this will continue, the infighting will continue, because we live in a country that is governed by politicians, and the politicians, even the president, for you to be president, you must be elected. And being elected by Kenyans, you must really traverse the country and win the support of the Kenyan people. Just like the times of Jesus. At the very onset of the universe, there was no sin.
All right.
People were only doing good things. But when the devil was thrown down to the earth, that's when now sin began to crop in. And God felt that we must have his evangelists. That's when you talk of, you hear of the fishermen being converted into fishers of men, because sin was now eminent everywhere. And during that time that Jesus had commissioned these fishers of men,
right,
we had people who rose against Jesus, who really never wanted the gospel to prosper.
Right.
And coming back to in this country, it's clear now that the person who has come out clearly and expressed his desire to inherit, to take over the mantle from President Uhuru Kenyatta is his deputy, William Ruto. So we have a lot of activities, people planning to undermine him, people planning to outwit him, so that maybe they have other candidates. So the issues of, political underfighting, those political shenanigans,
yes,
undercutting, we will see it until 2022.
All right.
Yeah.
Mark, do you think that will enable the president or the Big Four agenda to come to pass?
This country is torn in two in a different way than it was in 2017. In 2017, we were torn in two between the guys who are going to Canaan and the guys who are celebrating Jubilee. And that was the big fight. However, the fight now is more subtle. And the fight is between the progressives and the regressives. I would have said conservative, but they want to go back, so they're regressive. The progressives are the people who are saying, let's unite this country. The progressives are the people who are saying, let's fight corruption. The progressives are the people who are saying that the Big Four agenda is an agenda we need to support. The regressives are the people who still want to fight the fight that they won themselves in 2017. The regressives are people like Rashid Echesa, who would still find political capital in his mind in insulting the deputy president, the former prime minister rather. Okay? Right. And such people are caught up in a time loop where the only political relevance knew was in the incessant fighting between camps in this country. Fights which, by the way, have neither benefited us at any point in our history. So you've got the regressives, then you've got the progressives. Now, these progressives are interesting because they are few and far between. These progressives I can list in one hand. There's the president, there's the DPP, there's the DCI, and there's the driver of the green truck. Everyone else seems quite remarkably silent in matters of fighting corruption, in matters of the Big Four agenda, in matters of reconciliation. It is almost as if the president in his own administration has been isolated. And every move he makes is now taken to be an attack on 2022, which is a mistake on the side of Jubilee. However, if Kenya is serious, we must all draw one conclusion, and this is the conclusion we must draw. That number one, we must stop isolating the president. We must make the succession agenda the Big Four agenda. Kenyans must begin to ask, who is this person, whether it is Deputy President William Ruto or someone else, but in the minds of everyone who supports Jubilee, it's William Ruto. The question William Ruto must answer then is, will he be able to advance the Big Four agenda? After he's done the Big Four, will he have the next four? So for him, he will turn it into the Big Eight. He must answer the question that will he continue to unify this country? He must answer the question that under his leadership, is he promising that the Luos will have presidential visits as one is being planned by Uhuru Kenyatta, same as the people in Coast, same as the people in Rift Valley? He must answer those questions. Will he be able to answer the question, finally, that will he continue the fight against corruption, that he will not fire the DPP, that he will not fire the DCI, that he will not remove the gas from the green machine that is destroying buildings on riparian land? We must join the conversation of 2022 at the hip with the questions of Big Four, with the questions of reconciliation, and with the question of fighting corruption. Without doing that, it is an exercise in futility. Kenyans must remember that the last time we had an opportunity like this was when Mwai Kibaki was president. When Mwai Kibaki was president, the people of this republic were actively fighting against corruption. How did we lose it? We lost it when we saw that the people who were in his closest court were involved in Anglo-Leasing. That is where Kenya lost it. Today we have a chance of regaining it. Let's not lose it by having sideshow conversations about Wakora signing agreements, as Murkomen would say, or Echesa saying that he's being fired, not for the incompetence of making sure his people arrived safely in Nigeria, but because he's busy throwing stones at senators in Bungoma when he should be working in Nairobi.
All right. Kipchumba, do you think this is working?
I'll look at it from a point of view, as always, from a libertarian point of view. I'll choose not to be a conservative or a progressive, as Mark wants us to go that direction, or a regressive force.
All right.
When you look at 1 year after the election, there are very many things that come into mind. You ask yourself, where were we 1 year ago? We had the NASA camp, we had the Jubilee camp. There was a lot of political temperature, high-octane politics was at play. But look at the things that each camp promised us. And now that Uhuru Kenyatta shook hands with Raila Odinga, we have relative calm in the country, which is good for the nation. But there is a lot of confusion amongst Jubilee supporters as to what the handshake means. When you percolate it down to the normal villager in the village, they don't understand what the handshake means. Yes, it has brought calm, there is no Machozi Monday, but it ought to have been broken down and shared to an extent that it is a shared interest and a vision for every Kenyan. The other point that we need to understand is this: our economy, while in terms of the book, the normal GDP per capita things, we are okay. The common man feels the pinch.
All right.
The rise in fuel and everything pinches the common man. The issues around sugar and everything that we cannot explain to this country, that whether we are taking sugar laced with mercury or not, affects the common mananchi, which means our economy has not stood the test of time. Secondly, there was the great issue of electoral justice as proposed by Raila Odinga. Electoral justice, the whole hunger and clamor for electoral justice has been sent on a witness protection program. You no longer hear about it anymore. It is It is as if it was the electoral justice was just about Raila getting something. That is another thing which we need to relook at it as we move forward. So the other point we must also make is the point of there is a lot of tremendous progress in terms of the healthcare in this country.
Right.
The NHIF, we have seen the counties working a lot in terms of building these hospitals and renovating and refurbishing. There is also good steps being made in the fight against corruption. The steam is okay, although we now need to anchor it on law and the rule of law, so that we can sustain it. Sustainability of the fight on corruption is anchored not on individuals, as Mark talks about the DP and whether it will sustain the DPP. It is anchored on consistency of the application of rule of law. And secondly, we have a good baby in town, the Big Four. It is a nice baby. It must be nurtured well. But it must find its seat in the room and 2022 politics. We cannot sit here and ponder that we will do away with 2022 politics. It is the sweet music that Kenyans want to listen to. If we do not manage Big Four well, the 2022 politics will overtake it.
All right.
That is something, and it will, the legacy of Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
He has had good wins so far. In terms of women, he has a legacy. He has given women something that no successive president has done.
All right.
But in terms of the Big Four, it must be well balanced so that it doesn't look like a project solely for President Uhuru Kenyatta, but it must move now and be owned by the Jubilee supporters.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Gentlemen, with their takes on the 1 year after the election. Very quickly, let me sample some of your views, what you think about some of our discussions on the show today. David Angwenyi says, this man Bichachi has made my morning. Kudos, Mark. Kiprono Langat says, when thieves fight over the loot, probability of them getting caught is very high. The MPs could have fought over the conspiracy bribe. What really happened on NYS 1 and NYS 2 and other inquiries brought to parliamentary committees? Mzee Wesley says, this political risk analyst is the best thing that happened to TV. Pure genius. A lot of compliments coming for you guys. Ramadan says, surely where are we heading to? The so-called Kenyan leaders or the so-called lawmakers? Does it mean that the votes that you are seeking on August 8, 2017 were to go to the National Assembly to give out handouts or to make laws or to bring good changes? And Denny Lee Machuki says, before they go to this special place in hell, can we do something here on earth like recalling them and even shaming them for taking 10K as a bribe? What can a commoner take? 50 bob? One here from Okoa Sparkle says, all the MPs collaborated and we find the entire house culpable. Writing is on the wall. I invite Kenyans to mobilize and resist rogue leadership in parliament. And finally, one here from Shadrach Mule says, as Kenyan MPs eat corruption goodies, Kenyans are consuming contaminated sugar with major health consequences on the way. Kenya ni nchi ajabu kweli. Keep the conversation ongoing on various the things we're talking about here on Sunday edition. Let's take one more quick commercial break. We are back shortly and we'll be talking about arguably President Uhuru Kenyatta's biggest dragon that he has to slay according to a lot of pundits, and that is corruption. Don't go too far.
This is KTN News.